Perfect. We're live. All right. Welcome everyone to this workshop, this 9x Live on building n8n agents with Claude and MCP. What we have in store for today. So I'll do a little bit of an introduction at the start about who we are at 9x. We'll cover a little bit of theory. So AI agents 101. What are AI agents? What are they comprising of, and when should you use them? We'll touch a little bit on MCP, Model Context Protocol, and then hopefully the theory won't take too long, but I do want to make sure we cover it. And then we'll get into the hands-on part. We're actually setting up our n8n MCP server, as well as starting to prompt our n8n agents. And then finally, we'll leave some time for some discussion in the Q&A. Let's see if we leave time within the 90 minutes, but I'm definitely happy to stay on longer and answer any questions. But it's a packed one, but we'll do our best to get everything in. All right. So starting with AI agent, or starting with the introduction. So we are 9x. My name is Jan. I'm one of the co-founders of 9x. You see the small pictures there of my co-founders, all Alex and Pierre-Yves. Basically, at 9x, we're building your one-stop shop to learn AI and automation. We really believe that AI and automation are the most important skills to learn right now as a business professional, and we're on a mission to deliver these skills on a silver platter. And we do these in a few different ways, starting with our YouTube channel. So every week we publish free AI and automation tutorials, demos, as well as trying to cover some of the latest news in the AI world, but really focused on how business professionals can be leveraging this technology. And I think Kat should be dropping in the chat now the link to subscribe to the channel. You'll also see the recordings of these 9x Live sessions. And next week, I'm actually releasing a video on the topic that we're covering in this live workshop, a bit more high production YouTube version. So feel free to also check that one out. On top of the free videos that we share on YouTube, we also run these live workshops that you're in right now. And next week's session is going to be a bit more targeted towards beginners and on one of the very fundamental skills that we think are becoming more and more important, and that is prompt engineering. And Kat will also be sharing that in the chat. I think you'll probably also get invited via Luma, but if this is something that's interested to you, we'd love to see you here next week. This will be on Wednesday evening next week. And then finally, we obviously have courses. So we've tried to structure our course offering to take you from beginner to advanced in terms of AI literacy. We have an intro course that we are working on right now, which is helping you discover just what is possible at the moment with AI as a business professional. Then our beginner course, the AI Operator, is really about teaching you how you can leverage tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude as a co-pilot, touching on prompting techniques and things like that. And then we have our advanced program, the AI Builder, which is really about building automations all the way up to building AI agents. And we actually have so as I mentioned, the AI starter is you can join the waitlist for that one. And we have the AI Operator and Builder Live that you can join. And we do actually have some summer offers on at the moment. These will run till the end of August, so a couple more weeks. If this is something you're interested in, feel free to check out the links that Kat is sharing in the chat. And definitely happy, if you have any questions, just reach out. So with that small intro.
Yeah, and there's one quick question.
Yes.
The question is, do you ever do sessions for groups, not companies?
So groups, not companies. Well, I guess this is our one-to-many that we're doing right now in these live workshops, but it really depends on what you mean by groups. But definitely feel free, head over to our website, drop us a message, or also reach out on LinkedIn. Yeah, best way is just to drop out and reach out, and we can make something work. But as I said, otherwise we're doing these weekly live sessions. All right, so AI Agents 101. I want to start first with a post that my co-founder Alex actually wrote and posted in December last year, which resonated quite well around the topic of AI agents. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We'll also share these slides afterwards for you to check out in more detail. But basically, is really going over what's the difference between an automation, what's the difference between an AI workflow, which is just using AI steps within an automation, and then what's the difference with an AI agent. And the reason why this probably resonated quite well is there was a lot of people are sharing on LinkedIn different demos of AI agents, where in majority of the cases it's just an AI workflow. Also, many business problems don't actually need agents as a solution. AI agents, their big strength comes from the fact that they can leverage fuzzy logic. They're autonomous and they're well suited for specific tasks, which are not deterministic and adaptive. But that being said, I would really not try and focus on, oh, I have to build an AI agent for this, or oh, it's not good enough because it's just an AI workflow. Really always think about what's the business problem I'm trying to solve, and then see which of these methods is required. And as I said, in majority of the cases, probably an automation or an AI workflow is more than enough. Now, in terms of what AI agents can do, I just want to quickly break down the capabilities of agents into a few key categories that we've identified. So first of all, perception. Agents are able to gather information from their environment, often through data inputs like text, images, or other sensory data. Next up comes decision making. So agents can process information and determine the best course of action based on predefined goals or learned experiences. Now, from perception and decision making, then we move on to action. So agents can actually execute tasks or commands to achieve outcomes. Pretty much agents will be able to do anything that humans can do right now via a web browser. We're actually quite close to this at the moment. Next up, communication. So agents are able to interact with not only us humans, but like the users that are setting up the agents or that the agents are working with, but also other systems, other tools, often through natural language or through API calls. Then comes learning. So agents are not static, but they can actually improve their performance over time by analyzing past outcomes and adapting based on those past outcomes and the best way to meet the goal. And so these categories basically form the backbone of any AI agent. Any questions on that, Kat, or so far so good? Perfect. All right, so now we've sort of had a look at the categories, but what are the actual building blocks? What are the components of AI agents? And there's 6 things that I want to point out before we actually go and set up our agents during this live workshop. So 6 core components, starting with the large language model itself. So this is probably assumed, but the large language model, this is typically like the AI agent's brain. This is what helps the agent make the different decisions. And what's great with the fact that agents are running on large language models, most of the tools that we use to set up agents, when a new model is released, you don't need to start again. You can simply upgrade your agent to the latest model and your agent immediately becomes smarter. The verdict is still out when it comes to GPT-5, whether it's made it smarter or dumber, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later. After, on top of the large language model, obviously that is some underlying power that the agent has, but we need to give it instructions. And this is what's going to guide the agent's behavior. As well, agents have tools. So these are external services that the agent can call in order to achieve its goal. Then we have knowledge, and knowledge is the way that we can provide the agent with any necessary context it needs. It could be context about our business, like FAQs, website data, internal company data. We also have agents have the ability to remember things with memory, and this helps the agent remember past interactions. And finally, cooperation. So agents are not single player. You can actually set up teams of agents that can work together to achieve their goals. So before we jump onto the MCP, I just want to take a quick look inside n8n around their AI agents feature, and this should make it very clear into these 6 different categories and how we can approach this. So if I head over to n8n, and what I would recommend, I haven't actually found a link for this, but if you are setting up your n8n account for the first time, I just got a pop-up and prompted, check out these n8n basics, learn how to build AI agents in n8n. And it's very, very useful. They've given basically 3 pre-populated workflows that you can use to understand some of those concepts that I was just mentioning. So we can see one about how agents leverage memory. Another one is how agents can leverage different tools. So here we see we have an AI agent that's connected to a Google Sheet and a calculator tool to help it achieve whatever goal it's set up. And also the one that I want to demo, first of all, is like agents with memory. So I'm just going to open up this n8n workflow. We can see here we have an AI agent node set up. It is first of all connected to an LLM, a large language model. And in this case, it's using OpenAI set to GPT-5. But what's great is you can just simply select whatever model you like. So let's say based on the current information. I'm not so trusting of GPT-5. I want to go back to GPT-4. I can simply go and swap out my agent's model. And I can also use different providers. I could delete OpenAI and change it to Claude or change it to Gemini or whatever provider you would like to use. And in this case, we have a simple chat agent. So I can just chat with my agent and I'm going to ask a question like, when was Albert Einstein born? And now this is something that is, the agent has this in its training data. It doesn't need to fetch this from any external context. So the agent was simply replied that Albert Einstein was born on the 14th of March, 1879. And we can see it's added some things to its memory. And to highlight the importance of this memory feature, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate this tab and open this same workflow up. And so now what we've done is we've actually created a different session. And if I just simply ask, how old would he be today? And fire this one off, we're going to see how our agent or the LLM model replies. So it has no idea. It's asking, who are you referring to? If you share his name and date of birth, I can tell you exactly how old he'd be today. If I ask that exact same question in this session, in this thread, because this agent has the ability to remember past interactions, it's very easy to understand that, hey, Albert Einstein was born based on August 14th, 2025, would be 146 years old today. So giving agents access to memory is very important when you want to have these sort of chat interfaces. And as well, what we have in these little demos that n8n have provided, a bit more advanced. Let me just go back here. I'll leave without saving. We also have agent with access to knowledge, and this little demo allows you to like upload a file and then ask questions against it. So if I would ask this agent, what is 9x? It would probably say 9x is an algebraic equation, or it could be the name of a product. If I was to upload a file here, giving it all the information about our company, it would be able to use that and format its answer. So that's just a quick 101 of these AI agents inside n8n. We can connect them to different AI models. We can give them access to memory. We can connect them to different tools. And in terms of the instructions, we can basically add that in the settings. So we can provide a prompt to our agent. And typically for these instructions, what you'll see a lot used is this system message. So by default, it just says here, you are a helpful assistant, but you can give it any set of instructions that will help the agent understand how it should go about completing the certain task. So on that quick agents 101, I'll ask again, anything in the chat, or so far so good?
Yes, we do actually have a bunch of questions. Should I read them out to you, Jan?
Yeah, let's go with maybe one or two.
Okay. So it says, does it use API credits?
API credit. So in terms of, yes, exactly. So if you are connecting your large language model, so here I've got OpenAI connected. What you will see here is I need to set up my credentials. I'll zoom here a little bit. You basically need to go and get what's known as an API key, set that up, and then basically you can get underway and start using it, but it will consume credits. So there are some other AI agent builders out there that let you get started without needing to upload your own API keys. What I would say, though, is typically if a platform is letting you interact with large language models and you're not adding your own API keys, they're typically charging a premium on top. So I actually think it is a benefit here that we can add our own API keys, and then we have full control of how much is it costing us and how much are we using.
Okay, there's a lot of questions. I'm sorry, we probably will not be able to answer all of them right now, but I think we can maybe answer some later, right?
Yeah, perfect. And I can also have a quick look through, because I do want to get onto the build part.
So hold on to your question.
Yes. Oh no, well, feel free, keep dropping them in the chat. That's going to be very useful for me. And I think also, like, at each section we'll take a few questions. All right, so that was AI agents. Now looking onto model context protocol. But before I do that, I actually want to start with a quick demo of what we'll be doing today. And already going into Claude, before I show you how to set it up, but just showing you how this works, of how we can go about creating an AI agent or prompting Claude to create these workflows inside n8n. So here I am, I have my Claude desktop set up, and I just want to send a simple prompt to Claude. Maybe just adjust the models here a little bit. I'm also going to turn on this extended thinking. I'll explain all of this in a little bit, but here I'm just asking create an n8n agent that pulls the hot posts from the ChatGPT subreddit. So this is going to be maybe useful for any Reddit enthusiasts out there. I want you to aggregate the hot posts and then send me on Slack a short, concise summary every day of the current sentiment and top user topics. So I've just basically in plain language expressed what I would like this workflow or agent to do. So I'm going to send this one off. And now Claude's going to get underway. I just want to show you it's starting, and then we'll jump back to the presentation and we'll check in and see how it's gotten. So here it says, I'm going to help you create your n8n workflow. And what it started doing is calling some tools. So I want you to remember that when we get into the explanation. So here it's got a tool to look at some documentation. Now it wants to discover some different nodes. So nodes are those little points in our n8n workflow. So this one's going to get underway. We're going to let Claude do its thing, and we're going to touch back base on this one in a little bit. So let me go back to my presentation and let's jump into MCP, Model Context Protocol. And so Model Context Protocol is simply a way for AI models like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude to interact with different tools. And why this is important is when we have tools, large language models gain new capabilities. And the reason for that is when we have a large language model like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, just on its own, if you're just chatting with, and now it's changing with connectors, they're starting to bring in MCP inside the apps. But back, if you remember, you were just chatting with ChatGPT, this would be great at conversation, maybe working on strategy or pulling historical facts. But these large language models on their own are not able to perform any meaningful tasks. I was able to ask ChatGPT to write me an email, but it was not able to go into my Gmail account and actually set that up as a draft or send it off. And what we ended up doing is we were just writing, like prompting emails in ChatGPT, and then us as the humans were doing the monkey work of copy pasting, right? Now, when we have a large language model equipped with tools, so let's say we could have connecting it to Salesforce, to Gmail, to Notion, this unlocks two very big capabilities. And first of all is the fact that the AI is able to pull in context from those tools. So if we connect a large language model directly to Salesforce, we could ask it to run a deep analysis about what are the top types of job titles that are actually buying our product at the moment. If we just asked it that, it would probably say, hey, please give me an Excel or a spreadsheet. If it's connected directly to your CRM, it can just go and look up that information. But on top of that, it's also able to perform actions in external systems. So actually going in, sending the email, writing the email. So that's why Model Context Protocol is so important. And what the Model Context Protocol is specifically is, and I'll just walk you through what it actually does. So you have your large language model. You are then connecting to what is known to an MCP server. And that MCP server then connects to the different tools. And all that Model Context Protocol is an agreed upon standard. Yeah, so it's a bit like there's an agreement at the moment out there about how time zones should work. You have Greenwich Mean Time in the UK, and everything is either plus or minus this time. This is an agreed upon standard. Basically, MCP was created by the team at Anthropic, who are responsible for Claude. But since then, both OpenAI and Gemini have agreed to adopt this concept. And why this is very important is it just simplifies things a lot. Rather than every single AI provider coming up with their own method of how their model can connect to different tools, and the same as rather than every single tool, rather than Salesforce saying, hey, this is how AI can talk to our systems, Gmail saying this is how AI can talk to our systems, and Notion, basically Model Context Protocol is this universal standard that it like sort of the industry is hoping everyone will adopt. And that is basically what powers what I'm going to show you today. And then one last quick note is basically LLMs can connect to multiple MCP servers, which then can connect to multiple different tools. So you're not just restricted to one. Maybe, Kat, if there's any questions specifically on MCP before we move on.
Someone just asked, what's the difference between MCP and RAG?
So RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is basically a technique for AI to like basically go to the access knowledge. That's what I mentioned here before. So in this demonstration, this is a very simple RAG system. And so they even mention this is that basically whenever this AI agent is answering a question, what it's going to do is it's going to query some data, which is, and this gets a little bit technical, but it's basically data that's stored in a vectorized database so that the agent can actually go in and retrieve some context. So that's what retrieval augmented generation is. Whereas with MCP, it's just connecting to different tools to perform actions, if that makes sense. Awesome. All right.
Some people are also asking if we can share the prompts. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we will share them later and share some resources.
Absolutely. We're all about sharing here. All right, so let's check in with Claude and see how Claude is doing. So let's see. All right, so we can see Claude is starting to write some code, which is quite excited. Before that, let me just go and see step by step. So because what's happening here is we have this n8n MCP server connected. Whenever you see these different like search nodes, these are tool calls. So Claude knows that, hey, it needs to use the search node, and it found that it can use the Reddit node. Then it basically found some information about the Slack nodes. It's preparing everything. And then what it's doing, it's actually given me a graph of how the workflow is going to be structured. So just from a single prompt, create an agent that pulls the hot posts and then gives me a short summary on Slack. The first thing is doing is giving some validation, saying, hey, this is how I think I would build out this workflow. And then it's actually started to write some code. And what this code is if I go into n8n, whenever you have an n8n workflow, at the top right here, what you can do is download this workflow. And this is very used by the community for sharing different templates and sharing nodes. And when you download a workflow and open this up, it is basically in this format, which is known as JSON. So it's basically a bit of code that when you put that into n8n, it knows exactly how the workflow should be set up. Or also if you in n8n manually go and create a workflow, you can extract this code that anyone you can share and they can import it into their n8n account. And large language models are very, very good at writing code when they know how to do it properly. So that is exactly what is happening here. Now, this one is still going ahead and it's writing some code, so it's probably going to take a few more minutes. Here I actually took a very advanced model. So I chose one of the top models, which takes a little bit longer to run. And what I also turned on was this extended thinking. This means it does take a little bit longer, but we typically get better results. But we'll check on this in a little while to see how it's going. All right. So while that is still running, what I want to show you now is getting into actually setting up this MCP server for yourself. And to do that, what we're going to do is I've prepared like a little FigJam document. And I think, Kat, you can share the link to this one in the chat as well.
Sure, 1 second.
And I'm already going to go over here and open it up. And so in this little FigJam, you have the link. Yeah, I see some people coming in. Perfect. Awesome. So this one, I'm just giving you a quick breakdown. I'm going to walk you through the setup. I'll walk you through the setup first. Then we'll go check back in with Claude and we'll start actually that everyone can set this up. So how this whole thing works is we have Claude Desktop, obviously, and it is connected to this MCP server. So we have this n8n MCP server. What this MCP server does, we can see here it is a model context protocol server that provides AI assistance with comprehensive access to n8n node documentation. That documentation tells the AI exactly how, let me just move my tabs around, exactly how this code should be written. So as I said before, that MCPs enable AI to pull in context. So it's covering basically, it has documentation around the 532 n8n nodes. This covers 99% of the schema of the properties and 90% of the official n8n documentation. So this was set up by Romuald, who's a member of the n8n community, and this is actually community run. So on one side, this isn't officially made by n8n, so you have to have some caution there, but it's open source and run by the community. And so what this MCP server does is it enables Claude to understand exactly how these n8n workflows should be set up. Now, this MCP server has access to different tools, and I'll put these into two different categories. In the first category here is access to documentation and validating workflows. So we can see here in the list, there are different tools from listing the different nodes, getting some node information, searching nodes. So when I say, hey, please pull in Reddit hot posts, it's going to go and do a search and pull in what are all the nodes related to Reddit. Yeah. And then it's got some advanced tooling for validating whether that workflow will be successful. And let me just go and check back in and see how Claude's doing. It's still validating the final workflow. It looks like it's finished writing the code. So while it's just doing that, I'll touch on the second category of the different tools that this n8n MCP server has access to. And that is the fact that it can interact exactly with the directly with the n8n API. And what this means, which we'll see in a second, it gives you the ability to actually go ahead and create workflows directly in your n8n account from Claude. So I'm going to just prompt Claude, and it will create the workflow for me, give me a link to that workflow that in one click I can open, and then it'll basically mean my workflow is ready to at least review for the first time. Some very useful things in terms of debugging. It can also go and get information about executions. Executions are when you run a workflow. So when I chatted with the AI agent before, that is an execution, and it's able to look into the log. So if you get an error, you can just go back into Claude and say, hey, I had this error, and it's going to go and check the latest executions and see exactly how it can fix the problem. So let's see how we're going. It's still validating the workflow. This is always the case when you're doing something live, that it takes a little bit longer. So what I can actually do, I'm going to go, I'm like a good chef. There's one that I prepared earlier. So while this one finishes, I'm going to go into my recent chats, and I'll pull up this Reddit sentiment Slack automation. And you can see here the prompt that I shared at the start. Let me zoom around, was exactly the same. And then it went slightly different diagram. It basically said, hey, are we good to create it? And I said, yes, build it directly in my n8n instance, and then create it directly in my n8n instance. It gave me a code. I basically asked then for the direct link. Let's see where it is. I basically provided the workflow ID, so I can go into n8n and open that one up. And let me just check how this one's going.
Jan, one quick mention. Could you turn off the pointers on FigJam just so it's a bit overwhelming for some people, I think. Is that possible? Thank you.
See, if anyone can guide me through how to do that quickly.
I actually don't know either. So if someone knows.
Let me see here. Share. Is it in the sharing settings? Yeah, if anyone can write it in the chat, but otherwise, yeah, we'll have to. Hopefully there's no, I'll put out an epilepsy warning that we don't have any fits or anything like that. I do understand that it's a little bit overwhelming, so apologies for that one. All right, so our workflow was successfully created. What Claude has done now, let me open up this code. It's got the code ready. What I could do is just go and copy this one over, but what I'm going to actually ask it to do, and let me say here, please go ahead and create that. Whoops, let me minimize the zoom directly in my n8n account. And now Claude, because I've given it access to my n8n API credentials, it has the ability to call some different tools and actually go and create the workflow. So I'll show you in a minute. There's basically two versions to this. So one is just that Claude will go ahead and create the code for you then to copy, or you can add your API credentials and get it to actually create the workflow directly in your account. So in the case of that Reddit, the Reddit agent that I asked it to create, so that one's here. So you can see this was the agent that Claude created for me, which is pretty insane that just from a prompt, it went ahead and created this full workflow. Now, what you will already notice is this is not using the AI agent node, right? This is what I would classify as an AI workflow or an AI automation. And that's because even though I asked Claude, hey, create me an AI agent, it realized from the prompt, all I want you to do is go and get the posts from Reddit, then aggregate them and run an analysis through AI and send me the summary on Slack. So as I said, in most cases, probably an AI workflow is going to be enough. And what you will find more and more as you're prompting this n8n MCP, in most cases, even if you ask for an agent, don't be surprised if it just spits out an AI workflow, because this MCP seems to always take the most simplest approach, which is very, very good. Now, when you have this, you do need to make some additional configurations. So for instance, here, you need to create your Reddit account. You can see here, it's made some assumptions so that it didn't get quite right. So here it's pulling in the posts, get many. It already added the category hot posts, which is what I asked it for in my prompt. It's pulling in 100. The subreddit I would need to change here to ChatGPT. And then it is pretty much good to go. And then we can see here, if we take a look at the AI step, you can see what our agent has done. If I open this up, it's actually created the full prompt for us to use. So analyze these, and here it's dynamically putting in the posts, Reddit posts from this specific subreddit, and it's basically written some code that when we run this, it will know exactly what to map in each step. Let me just check Claude one more time. Okay, so here we go. We have success workflow created in your n8n instance, and I can just open, let me click this one and open it up. And now I need to check where it's actually opened it up. Here we go. And we can see now it's slightly different. There's an extra, basically an extra step involved. And that is the thing is with these large language models, with AI, when 20 of us, 100 of us write the same prompt, we'll probably get slightly different results. There is still some setup needing to be done. But for me, what's the most impressive is like this would have taken me way longer to set up myself. And also if you're asking someone who's maybe worked on automations for 6 months, it would probably take them a long time and maybe they make some mistakes. This is already getting to what I would consider a very good 80% result. So with that demo out the way, now I want to go back to this FigJam and let me walk you through the setup so that everyone is able to start prompting. So I guess a few of you have already found this part for the setup instructions. So there's 2 things that we need to install. First of all is Claude Desktop. And so you can just basically click the links in the FigJam. I also shared a Loom earlier. So just head over to Claude Desktop and install this on whatever device you are using. Once you've installed it, you will open it up and it should look a little bit something like this. If I just go here to a new chat, this is what you'll probably see. So I'll give everyone a moment to go into Claude Desktop. What I can also do is share this link as well in the chat. You go here. Where's the chat? And I'll give everyone a minute, and if you can give me some thumbs up reactions once you've got Claude Desktop installed. Okay, Mahandi's already got his agent set up. Very cool. That's jumping ahead a little bit. Yeah, Claude Desktop config file. We're going to get to that in a second. Awesome. So I see a few people are ahead. Next up, what we want to do is download, install Node.js. So Node.js is a way that you can run JavaScript locally. This is already enough for most people to like run out the room and say, hey, what is this? This is way too technical. All we need to do is click Get Node.js. I'm going to share this link. It's also in the FigJam board. Paste this one here. Click Get Node.js and then select, again here, whatever device you're using. I'm on Mac. Download the Mac installer, open that one up and follow the installation prompts. I'll give a few minutes for that one to be set up. And maybe while everyone is installing both Claude and Node.js, I'm going to check out the chat for any questions, or Kat, if you've got any on the list.
I'm just looking through which ones are best to ask. Give me a minute.
So I saw already a question around like some competition. So can we use MCP for Zapier and Make.com using Claude? And then Lily's also interested to know if n8n is significantly better than other platforms. So one thing is Zapier, Make, n8n, Relevance, they all support MCP. n8n, this MCP that I'm showing you here, what's special about this one? And let me actually open up this GitHub repository while I talk about it. And again, got to give a lot of credit to Romuald, who set this one up. This is an MCP for creating workflows, right? What you can do is in Make, in Zapier, and n8n, you can also create your own MCP servers. So let's say you have a Make workflow where you could go and connect it to a certain system where you have some business data. And what that means is that within Claude, so if I go here to Claude, these MCP servers at the moment, I've only got these 3 set up to help me create n8n workflows at the moment. You can see Claude itself has also started to add like this Google Drive search, Gmail search. This is all powered by Model Context Protocol, and you can actually add new connectors. So they've got like Canva. So what I would always check first is there a default one? Like let's say if you're using Notion, try the Notion MCP. If you want to create your own MCP servers, you can do that in n8n, you can do it in Make, you can do it in Zapier. And Lily, as opposed to your question, like, is n8n significantly better than the other platforms? For me, it's really a question of n8n is probably the most technical if I'm comparing it to Make and Zapier. And that can be a very, very good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. For beginner users, potentially maybe something like Make or Zapier are more, like, let's say, appropriate. For instance, most of our workflows here at 9x, we've set up in Make. What n8n have done a really, really good job at is this AI agent feature and giving you all the technical capabilities. So the way they sort of see it is anything that an engineer should do, you should be able to do here in n8n using this user interface. And like their AI agent feature, they were very, very fast with it compared to the other platforms. And I would say it is the most advanced when we're just talking about AI agents. All right. So hopefully there everyone has installed both Claude and Node.js. To make sure that Node.js is working specifically for this n8n MCP server, what I want to do now is open up the terminal, and I'm actually going to close this one and restart it so you can show what it looks like. If you're on a Windows, this is the command line, I believe, but open up the terminal. And unfortunately on the terminal, I cannot zoom in here as much as I would like to. But what I'm going to do is type npx and then n8n minus MCP. And I'll copy this one also and share it in the chat. And if we fire this little command off by pressing enter, if you're doing this for the first time, it will ask you do you want to install this MCP? And you just have to press Y for yes. But then what you want to look for is n8n documentation MCP server running on Studio Transport. That means we've successfully installed Node.js and this n8n MCP server can run. And just to point out what we're doing here is there's different basically ways of installing this n8n MCP server. And the option that we're doing here is option 1, the fastest. Yeah. And so what we've done here is we've installed Node.js and we've run this npx n8n MCP. And now what we need to do is add some information to the Claude desktop config. And I know a few people added it in the chat. We have two options here. If you only want to use Claude to basically pull in information, so if you only need Claude to do this part here, pulling in information so that it can write the code, you can go with, where are we? Let me go back here. We can go with the basic configuration. If you want Claude to be able to actually go and create that workflow directly in your n8n instance, here's the full configuration. And here you will need to add your API keys, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So let's say I want to do the full configuration. I'm going to copy this one. And what we want to do is go into Claude. And so open up the Claude desktop that you've got installed. And here at the top, I'm going to go to settings. And then in the settings, we want to identify developer. And I'll give everyone a second to get there.
People are asking if the code can also be copied in the chat.
Yes, the code, but you should also be able to get it from the FigJam. But yes, I will also copy it in the chat. Yeah, I think in the FigJam, we're jumping ahead a little bit. So let me paste this one here. Okay, so once you've identified your developer area of the Claude settings, what you want to do is click Edit Config. And what this one will do is it will basically open up a folder exactly where we have this Claude desktop config file. And what you want to do is simply open this in any sort of text editor. Now, I'm not going to open mine because it's got my API keys in there. And that's one big rule is we do not share API keys in live streams or with anyone. So what I've got open in the text editor that I'm using Visual Studio Code, but you can simply open this up in a text edit in Notes, whatever it is. When you're opening up your config file for the first time, what you'll see is this is an empty JSON. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste in that code that we got from the GitHub repository from this n8n MCP server. But there are a couple of sections that we do need to fill in, which is our n8n API URL and our n8n API key. I'll wait one moment for everyone to get. Was there any questions with finding?
Yes. Could you repeat maybe where the code should be pasted? Someone was asking that they missed that part.
But if you're going into Claude Desktop, then if I just go back out into a new chat. So Claude Desktop, what you want to do is here on Mac, I need to click on Claude and then go to Settings, and then in Developer. And in Developer, you should see this button called Edit Config. Yeah, and when you when you click Edit Config, what it will do is it will open up the place on your laptop where this config file is, and you just want to go ahead and open that one. Yeah. Then in my case, as I said, I'm just going to show you this in a text editor. By default, your config file should look like this, just an empty JSON. So 2 of these curly brackets, nothing else. And you basically just paste the code in there. So now we want to go and find our API URL and our API key. So to do that, we're going to go back to n8n. So let me go to my n8n instance. And here at the top, I'm just going to click onto the URL. And what we want is anything between the .cloud and the start. So this is my specific go9x.app.n8n.cloud is the URL for our n8n instance. Every single n8n instance will have a different URL. And also if you're self-hosting, I guess you will have your custom domain here. And what we want to do is simply paste our URL here into the n8n API URL. And to get our API key, let me just move Claude out the way. In n8n, if you click in the bottom left next to your profile, and we go to settings, and then we go to n8n API, here is where you can go and create an API key. So when I click create an API key, you can give your API key a name. And you can also, you don't need to touch the scopes. By default, everything is filled in. And then you can choose, do you want this API key to expire? Meaning, let's say if you pick 7 days, which is for security reasons, maybe better, then in 7 days, your Claude MCP server, if you're trying to create workflows directly, will stop working. You'll need to come in here and create a new API key and paste it in that file. I'm not going to go ahead and create one because this will basically go and show my API key to everyone. But here, if you just give it a name, select your expiration. So in my case, when I did this, I selected no expiration, hit save. n8n will show you a code. That code you need to copy and basically paste that in here. So imagine if my code was ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what you'd be pasting in. It is a very, very long string. Was anyone able to?
Jan, so there's a couple of comments saying that it's a little bit too fast. So maybe if you mention where you got lost, maybe then Jan can also, if possible, repeat that section again. Because, yeah, some people were not able to follow along, unfortunately. I think it's especially pasting the code from the FigJam. So maybe we can.
Okay. And I see also a lot of questions about the n8n API. It could be that maybe on the free plan, they're not giving you API access. Would make sense, but don't worry. What you can do is still run this, and then it's just about copying. So the API key is not the critical part, but I will show you how to copy this code again. So maybe I can show you from the FigJam. And what I would actually recommend is what I've added at the bottom here. In this here, the bonus additional MCP servers, just copy all of this. Because what there's actually 2 additional MCP servers here. One called n8n workflow docs that just give Claude access to even more documentation for it to read, and also context 7, which helps it run code. This will work with only this first part, but what you can easily do, let me go into the clicking mode. I believe you should be able to click in here, copy the code, and then paste this in. If you are not able to use your API key, what I would then recommend is simply just exactly everything is the same. Studio error, yep, true. So everything is the same. If you do not have an API key, just remove these 2 points. And I see someone pasting in the chat. Perfect. Awesome. What you need to do now is if you save this file, so if you save this config file and you go back to Claude, so if you go back to your Claude chat, open a new chat, you will still not see this MCP server. Because what you need to do, this is in like the configuration file of Claude. What you need to do is basically quit out of this and then open up Claude Desktop again. And basically Claude Desktop will now load with that latest configuration. and your MCP servers should be shown here. API key is very long. Yes, absolutely. All right, I'm just looking through the chat. All right, perfect. All right, where do you get your n8n API key? I'll go through that part one more time. So in n8n, and now it seems like from the feedback, this is only something that you get access to if you are a paid user. So go down here into your settings. So at the bottom left, next to your name, click settings, and you should see n8n API, and then you can go and create a API key. Now, what I will show you quickly for anyone who's maybe a bit disappointed now, they don't have an API key, I'm just on a free account, this is useless, what am I doing here? Let me go over to the n8n MCP server that we ran before. So this Reddit ChatGPT Insights workflow. And I'm just going to open up the latest code that it gave me. So here. And what you can do is in Claude, so everyone, maybe now everyone can go and already try this prompt. So I'm just going to copy this prompt into the chat. But actually, before I do, there's one thing I've forgotten. There's one thing I've forgotten, which I'll quickly touch on. I know there's probably a lot of free users here, but if you are a paid user, what is also a big part of this GitHub repository, what Romuald has created, are these Claude project instructions. So what this is a very, very in-depth prompt that tells Claude, so it has access to now the MCP servers. It can read the n8n documentation. It can go and create workflows. What this prompt does is it tells Claude exactly how it should use those different tools. Now, if you are a Claude paid user, so I'm going to go back to Claude, and on the left-hand side, under you can see projects. If you're on a free plan, you do not see projects. What you can do is you can set up a new project, give it a name. So I'll call this one n8n demo. Create project. And when you create a project, what you can do is set project instructions. And you can basically paste in these long, detailed instructions about how Claude should interact with the MCP server. What's very useful about projects is whenever now I'm interacting with my n8n MCP server, this prompt is automatically attached. If you are a free user, just go ahead and create a new chat and say, start by reading these instructions carefully. And then go ahead and paste that long prompt that we have there. So just to show you again, that is linked in the FigJam, but here under Claude project setup, what this prompt does, it just basically helps Claude understand how it should call the different tools. All right. How are we going in the chat? I think most people, can you give us a thumbs up if anyone's has got the MCP server working? Alpha,
And some people are asking if they will have access to the FigJam after the session.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to keep that up. Only n8n MCP. Awesome. So I think if anyone's having problems copying from the FigJam, I think you just need to log in. So I tried with my free account. If you just log in with your Gmail or with whatever email, then you should be able to copy. Awesome. All right. So to show what's basically happening, so I'm going to go back to that the agent that I ran before, and don't worry, is in a second we will actually prompt an AI agent. As I said, this Reddit one is just an AI workflow. Let me open this one up, and whenever you prompt Claude with the MCP, it's going to create this code. If you're on the free plan, you can simply just click copy at the top here, and if we go into n8n. So I'm going to go into my n8n instance, and I'll leave this one and create a new workflow. And what we can simply do, so I've copied that to my clipboard. I can simply here hit paste, and the workflow is there. So the only thing that the API credentials are doing is so that we can be super lazy and say, hey, please create it directly in my account. It will go and do that, and it will give you the link. It can also then debug if anything's going wrong a little bit better and update, and you can basically keep prompting your agent. But what we see here is it still works totally fine if you just copy the code over. Yes, we will have access to the recording. So where to copy the code to, you just open up a new, so just go here, workflow. I'm going to create a new workflow in my personal account. And, oops. So, why it's not loading. Okay, so I've got a new workflow, and you can basically hit, so here you can't even right click, hit paste. You just hit Command V or Control V, depending on whatever operating system you're using, and your workflow should be imported. Okay, and the prompt. So now let's move on. I see a few people asking about the prompt. So let me do this quickly. What I'm going to do is quickly spin up a Notion page. 1 second. New page. Paste these in. n8n agent prompts. And share, publish, copy. All right. And here in the chat, if you open up this Notion, sorry about the fig jam and not being able to copy, you basically have access. So this is the prompt that I used at the start. And now what we want to try is, because this prompt, I asked it to create an agent that pulls the hot posts of the ChatGPT subreddit. Now what we want to do is we want to actually see if we can go ahead and create a fully fledged AI agent using the AI agent node. Now, AI agents, we showed at the start, they have 6 different components. There's the LLM, there's the instructions, there's different tools, there's memory, there's knowledge. It involves a little bit more depth. In most cases, if you're just doing a very simple prompt like this, what these are very good for is n8n or this MCP will show you like what's a very simple workflow that can achieve this goal. If you want to come up with a very detailed agent, you do need to be a lot more detailed in your prompts. So let me walk through this one. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy this, go over to Claude. And here, new chat, and make sure I'm in my n8n MCP project. Paste this one in. And in this case, maybe I'm going to select Sonnet, so it's a little bit quicker. Maybe the performance isn't as good, but let's see how it goes. Fabian, Context 7 is just a MCP server that basically helps in the LLM writing properly structured code. So it has access to a bunch of different libraries that it can pull in and improve the way it writes the code. All right. Is everyone able to access that Notion and access this longer agent prompt? No, you do not need a paid Claude account to make this work. What you would simply do is get the project instructions, as I showed, paste it in a simple chat, and then go and paste this prompt in. What you will potentially run into is if you're on a free account, you might get some usage limits, because you can see now this is doing quite a lot. My Claude is starting to run. It's doing a lot of tasks. It's making a lot of tool calls. This takes a lot of power. If you're on a free plan, you probably might see a pop-up soon saying, hey, you're reaching usage limits. Come back again tomorrow. So while this one's running, because I am a bit aware that we're short on time, what I hope everyone, please feel free to like go and try this, let this run. And then what I'm going to show you in the next step is going to be important for seeing like, okay, now that we can like prompt agents and we can see just how quickly it is for an agent. So this same prompt I ran earlier, and let me just show you that chat. And here I have the workflow, the direct link to the workflow that was created. So I can open this one up. And where is my, and here we go. So this was the agent that just from that prompt that I shared with you, that was created. So if we go over the prompt, let's take a look here. create an n8n agent that acts as my personal voice assistant. The voice agent will receive a voice note that I send via Slack and determine which of its tools it should use for my request. It should then reply to me on Slack, letting me know what actions it took and include any links in its replies. What I've basically gone through here is I'm saying it should use a Slack trigger. The agent, I want it to use a Claude model, and it has access to the following tools. It has an Airtable tool where it can log content ideas. It has a Google Calendar tool where it can use it to create new meetings. And it has a Notion tool where it can log my tasks. So what I'm trying to achieve here is if I'm on the go and an idea pops into my head, or I've realized, hey, there's a task that I need to add to my to-do list, I can simply send a voice note to this agent on Slack. And then the agent has access to these 3 different tools. So it's quite a generic personal assistant agent. And it will basically go and pick whatever tool it needs to, create the content idea, create the task, and then get back to me on Slack with what it's done. Here I'm detailing more specifically what each tool should do, laying out the workflow structure, and then giving some more instructions. So this was a much more detailed prompt, but what it meant is we can get very quickly a result that looks quite like this, where we see our Slack trigger set up. We've got the transcribe audio because I told it it's a voice agent. So all of a sudden it knows, hey, I'm going to get a Slack audio, then I'm going to transcribe it with OpenAI. You asked for an AI agent which has a Claude model. What I can even do is tidy this one up a little bit. And then I'm going to, after the agent is done, it's going to send its reply on Slack. Now, what you might notice is all of these nodes are currently in red, and that's because what we need to do is set up our connections. Yeah. And one first thing that I want to show you as well, there is one limitation of this MCP server at the moment, which is the fact of whenever you ask it to create an AI agent with tools, it is creating the wrong tool type. And what I mean by that is if I click here to add a new tool, we can, if I search for Airtable, what you'll notice is for most tools that we use, there's 2 different types. There's the Airtable node and there's the Airtable tool node. Same as if I look for Notion, there's Notion and then there's the Notion tool node, and same for Google Calendar. Yeah, there's Google Calendar and there's the Google Calendar tool. The tools are meant specifically to be used with AI agents. So if I drop in a tool, so in this case, I want my agent to be able to create events in my calendar. So I've got my Google Calendar connected. If I click out of this, you'll see that this Google Calendar event is now round in shape rather than square. And this is the correct nodes that we need to connect to our AI agent. At the moment, there is a little bug that it's always picking the wrong ones, even if you tell Claude, hey, you create this as a tool, not as a normal node. So what you will always need to do is go through and basically exchange these and clean these up. And there's 2 different ways of doing it. So what you could do is just manually go in and basically add the different tool. So I could change the Google Calendar. What you'll need to do then is go and basically set it all up again. A quicker way, which is a little bit more technical, I just want to show you that though, because typically a lot of the demos I've seen around this, they stop here and say, great, everything's set up, we're good to go. It is not the case. You will still need to make some adjustments. But what's crazy is just from a prompt, we already have a workflow that's 80% ready to go. So the way we can basically fix these tools is if we go back into Claude, and I'm going to just grab the latest version of the code. And I'm just going to copy all of this. And let's open it up in a text editor. It's a very, very hacky fix, but it seems to work. So if I basically paste this one in, this is my code for my n8n workflow. And what I'm going to look for is simply .airtable, which is the first tool that we're using. And you can see here, like the way that this code works is it basically explains all the different steps. And so for our Airtable tool, at the moment, it is of type .airtable. And all we need to do here is add Airtable tool. I'm going to do the same thing for Google Calendar. So .google calendar or .calendar. Let's see it. Here we go. And I'm just going to change this to Google Calendar tool. And finally, for Notion, we're going to change this to .notion tool. So now that we've made those 3 changes, if I copy this whole JSON file, if I go back into my n8n account, and so here maybe I even create a new workflow create in personal, leave without saving, and I paste this in. And let me just tidy this up. And now we see our agent workflow is set up, and all of these are actually set up as tools. All right. What I can do as well is I'm even going to go, I'll just go into that Notion. So if Claude is still running for many people, what I can even do is inside Notion, let me just add it here. All right. And if you refresh the Notion page now at the bottom, you should have this n8n workflow. If you do want to just jump ahead and like copy this, but this will be something similar to what Claude will create for you. Has anyone, just out of interest, been able to actually get this prompt running and been able to create it in their Claude account, in their n8n account? And if so, what I would be super interested in is, did you get a different result to what this looks like? If anyone, feel free to drop in the chat. Module still going. Okay, very good. All right. Yeah, Guy got a different result. Where's the prompt again? So here, let me send this link to the Notion. All right. What I want to show you now, because there's a lot of talk about like, hey, with n8n, with this n8n MCP, it just goes and creates the agent for you in a matter of minutes and everything is done. It is obviously not the case. What you still need to have is a knowledge of n8n, how it works, and so that you can go and set this up. What we need to do now is through all of these modules. So I'm going to go in here and I need to set up some configuration. So in this case here on Slack, I have my Slack bot already connected. If you're doing this for the first time, you will need to go and create a Slack bot and connect your Slack account. What I would recommend, two great sources of this: talk to Claude, talk to ChatGPT and ask, hey, can you walk me through setting up a Slack bot in n8n? And YouTube is your best source as well. So if I just search here, connect Slack to n8n, the community, it is very, very big. You will find a bunch of videos showing you exactly in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, in 6 minutes, how to connect Slack to n8n. You do need to have a bit of perseverance and experimental mindset. You do want to be able to set this up. So I've got my Slack account connected. So what I can simply do is select the channel where I want to communicate with my voice agent. So I've got a channel created, Jan Voice Agent, and it is going to have the ability to download files. I need to quickly update something in my settings. Whoops. Okay, so before I do this, I'm going to go through and just set up all of the rest of the credentials. So I just need to basically click in. If you already have credentials set up, all you need to do is basically like click into these nodes and confirm what it has said. So here it's got the Anthropic account. I want to change that actually to Claude Sonnet 4. Now I'm going to go into my Airtable where I want to log content ideas. So I've got my Airtable account connected. I want to send this to our content machine, which is where we store all of our content ideas, and I've got an ideas table. So once you have your credentials set, using this MCP is very, very efficient. If you're using this for the first time, there is still like what the Claude cannot do for you is go and set up all of these connections with the different tools. It can help you work out step by step how to do that, but you will still need to go and do that for all of the tools. So I want to now do it. Let me check for Google Calendar. I've got my Google Calendar created and Notion. And here it's going to be my tasks table. Whoops. Tasks. Awesome. I'm going to go through and show you the setup of all of these in a second. But before we can start even testing, basically n8n wants that we actually like set this up, each of these nodes. So you can see there is still a little bit of configuration because I could have, for instance, in my prompt to Claude already told it, hey, use the Jan -voice -agent channel, and it will already have fit this in. So you need to almost decide how much effort do I want to write into writing the perfect prompt versus what am I happy to actually just go and set up on n8n after it is set up. So let me just try. Okay. So what I would recommend now, once we have basically set up all of our credentials, what I'll try and do now is get this into like a running version within the next 10 minutes, and then we can stop for some questions. So basically you import your template from Claude into n8n. What you saw there is you will need to basically go and, before you can do anything, create your credentials. And next up now, I would recommend going back to the start and basically testing each step by step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that Slack channel and I'm going to record a voice note so that we can use for testing. So as we have, just to recap what our agent is actually doing, it has the ability to log content ideas in Airtable, create calendar events in my Google Calendar, and create tasks in Notion. So when I'm on the go, I can just say, hey, I have an idea for a LinkedIn post. This is what it is. And, or I need to set up a meeting for later, tell the agent via a voice note, and it will go ahead and do this. And you can basically add however many tools that you would basically useful for your personal assistant. So let me go to Slack and let me drop a quick voice note. Please log a idea for, oops, I need to allow the microphone. Yeah. Please log a content idea for a LinkedIn post that I want to write, recapping the n8n AI agents workshop. Okay, so that's my voice note. What I'm gonna do now is I'll go back to the, before I send this one off, I'm gonna go back to my n8n workflow, and I'm just gonna, on this first step, click here, execute step. It's now listening for a new file to be shared. I'll go back to Slack and send this one off. And we can see here node executed successfully and the file has come in. So it's identified that it's an audio file, 84 kilobytes, and we can now use this in other steps of our workflow. All right, so moving on, let's take a look at what Claude has decided to add in this next step. There's this extract audio file. It's decided to like run some JavaScript here. In this case, because I'm familiar with how Slack works and how both OpenAI works, in some cases, you'll see that it actually puts in some unnecessary steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this step here, because what I can do directly in this transcribe audio step, I can directly access this file 0. So by default, it said, I'm connected to OpenAI. I want to transcribe a recording and the input data field name. So what is the field name that contains the audio file? And in my case, this is file_0, because we can see that right here. And I'm going to execute the step. And so I think as the documentation gets better, as more and more of these workflows, the n8n MCP, the large language models will probably realize whenever you send a file to Slack, it won't have the name data, but will have the name file0. And this will just get better over time. So you can see now that OpenAI was successfully able to transcribe the audio. Please log a content idea for a LinkedIn post that I want to write, recapping the n8n agents workshop. Pretty cool. So already that was super quick to set up to get to that point. Now, next it's got preparing some information for the AI agent. Again, here it's running some JavaScript. What it looks like is happening is it has decided to, in this field, put JavaScript written lowercase, but what's actually needed is JavaScript written uppercase. What I could go ahead and do is go back to Claude and give it that information and say, hey, you've filled in this field wrongly. What I can also do is just go and check whatever JavaScript it has written, or say, okay, I don't need this code step. I'm just going to continue and map out my agent. So let's see what we can do in the AI agent step. So here it's basically taking the prompt, and let me just remove again this AI step. This step, and we can see now for the prompt, all I need to do is simply connect that to the audio that I just transcribed. So I'm just going to drop in here this little audio. And we can see here it's dynamically picked up whatever that audio was just transcribed. So as we run this, it will say, please log a content idea for a LinkedIn post. Now, what's very, very cool is these instructions that I mentioned before, Claude has already filled this in. You're a highly efficient personal assistant that processes voice notes and takes appropriate actions. Here it's told it has an Airtable tool, a Google Calendar tool, and a Notion tool. Analyze the transcript carefully. You may use not multiple tools if the voice note contains multiple requests. So this is pretty insane that it's already actually gone ahead and created the prompt for us. Now what I want to do is I'm just going to, before I run this agent step, I'm going to go through and check the different tools. And one very cool feature is whenever you are using this AI agent and a tool node. So here I want to create a record in my Airtable account. What I can do here is I can either dynamically map fields, or I can just click on this little starry icon and say, let the model decide. So what's going to happen here is the AI agent knows that it's pulling in a transcript. It needs to create an Airtable record. And I've said, based on the transcript, automatically come up with a name for the content idea and automatically come up with a description. All the other files we've like built quite a lot on this like content machine so that we can go from an idea and automatically create LinkedIn posts and blog posts and things like that. But for me, when I log a content idea, all I want it is to fill in the name and fill in the description. And we can do this for the other steps as well. So for instance, here, Google Calendar, Claude got a little bit wrong that it's automatically, when I tell it to create a calendar event, it's saying start 1 hour from now and finish 2 hours from now. That doesn't really make sense. I want the agent to decide here. So I'm going to click this icon, and that means whenever the agent uses this Google Calendar tool, it is going to decide what should be the start time of the event and what should be the end time of the event. And I will want to also add some additional properties. I want to have an event description, so I know what is this blocker about. And I also want the summary. This is very, very poorly named from Google, but the summary is basically the title of the event, the name of the event in my Google Calendar. So whenever the agent decides to use these tools, it's going to pick what's the start time, what's the end time, what is the event description, and the event title. Now, speaking of dates and times, I know I'm like rushing through this because I do want to like get through this demo, and then we can spend the last 10 minutes, half an hour, however long it needs on questions. What I would always recommend is whenever you're using an AI agent that should interact with certain systems that needs to use dates and times, I will always add a line here in the system's instructions saying the current date and time is, and then here we can change this to an expression. Again, you could ask Claude, the easiest would be here, go back into Claude and say, can you please add the current date and time dynamically in the agent instructions? But here, what I can do is I can basically add this now parameter, which will, if I say here to ISO, this basically just gets replaced if I scroll down here with the current date and time. I can zoom in on that a little bit. So whenever this agent runs, it will know what is the current date and time. The reason why this is important is because all of these AI models, their training finished 8-10 months ago. So if you ask most cases now here to an AI model, what is the current date? It's going to think it's in December 2024, for instance. So by adding this, it knows exactly what the current date and time is, and then it will know exactly what it should put as the start time for the Google Calendar event. And the same thing I'm going to do in Notion. So here, the title of the task, I let the agent decide. I can add any properties. So in my case, I want to always assign the task, since it's my personal assistant, I want to assign it to me. And let's see what other Notion properties we have. The due date, I'm going to, so here, due date. And I don't want to include the time in the due date, and the agent is going to decide what date it is. So if I say, put me in a task for tomorrow, it will dynamically add the due date to the task. Here I can say that we're in Berlin. And finally, I think, what else do I need to add? Let me move the status. And it's just fetching. Okay, I think there's a little issue with the API, so I'll leave the status for now, but what I typically do is always put the status as open. So whenever I'm creating a new task, it would automatically know to set that as open. All right, so now with all of these set up, let's run this AI agent. The AI agent has the current task of please log a content idea for a LinkedIn post that I want to write, recapping the n8n AI agents workshop. Just for context, here is our ideas table in Airtable. Here's where we log the different content ideas, and let's see if we get a new record here. So let me go into this and hit run. So what's happening? The agent has the instructions. It's calling its brain, its AI model. It's realized it needs to run the Airtable create a logger content idea tool, and then it finishes. And you can see here it's got an output saying, I've successfully logged your content idea in Airtable. This is going to be the message that we're going to send back on Slack. So what I can do is I'm just going to remove again this JavaScript step. And here the message I'm simply going to add is the output. And let's test out this step. So what we should see, first of all, let's check if it actually created it. But even first, this was my original voice note. And here I'm going to execute the last step. And let's check on Slack. And we can see our n8n agent saying, I've successfully logged your content idea. Here's what was created. LinkedIn post, content idea for a LinkedIn post that recaps n8n AI agents. What it's given me the record ID. I asked it always to give a link. But basically the way Airtable works is all of Airtable's links are dynamic. So what I would need to do is just go and update that agent's prompts so it knows exactly how to structure those links, and then it would include it, no problem. Let's see if it created. Here we can see the idea was logged, LinkedIn post recapping n8n AI agents workshop, and it's also added the description. So now that that one is set up, when I run it step by step, what I can simply do is click on execute workflow and run the whole thing. So let me do another voice note here, and we can basically see how this would work live. Imagine if I'm on the go. And let me add here a voice note. Create an idea for a LinkedIn post around why prompting agents makes building agents so much faster, but it's still very important to understand the technical elements of building AI agents. So that's my content idea voice note. And let's now make sure this whole workflow, at the moment, I'm just in this like test mode. So I need to click execute workflow. It's now listening. If I go here, I can send this one off. What I'm going to do, it's always nice. First, I'm going to keep an eye here on our Airtable base. And let's see if anything new pops up. And bang, just like that, we see the new record, LinkedIn post prompting versus technical knowledge in AI agent development. It's given a very in-depth description about what I want to cover here in the prompt, even added to it, pretty cool. And if we check on Slack, you can see it replied saying, perfect, I've taken care of it. Now, when it comes to the Slack message as well, we can see there's like these asterisks everywhere. What the agent is trying to do there is make this bold text. What this is called, it's called Markdown. And Slack is a little bit unique that in any other Markdown, 2 asterisks means it's bold. In Slack, it needs to be 1. So all you'd need to do here is in n8n itself, in the agent instructions, is let it know whenever you want text to be bold in your output, just use single asterisk. So it's like this, let's say, iterative development. What I think is the big benefit of using the MCP to start with, it gets you to 80% very quickly. And also, if you're a complete beginner, it's also great to give you an idea of how workflows could look like. One other example that I want to show you, and then we'll get into questions. So what I did is I actually prompted here Claude, and let me just open up the chat. So here, can you please create in n8n a lead enrichment and scoring agent? It should run whenever there is a new contact who signed up with a business email address. It should take the data from HubSpot and create a lead score based on industry, company size, and revenue. For context, we're a company that offers AI and automation training. So this is just high level, like what do I want this to create? If we go and take a look, let's see here if it actually shared the link with me. So I have the link that I can copy. And let's open this up in n8n. And you have a very, very good starting point at the least. What I would say is a very, very good starting point. You can see that it's realized that in HubSpot, it has an action new contact created. It's filtering only by business emails. Then it's getting all of the contact details. It's using a tool called Clearbit. So now I know that, hey, there's this tool called Clearbit that I can potentially use to enrich company data. Maybe I go and check it out. So if you don't know what tools you could use to solve a certain problem, that's also what I would say is a massive use case for using this MCP and prompting your agents, is you could discover what a solution could look like. It is not production ready. You will still need to take the time and go through the steps. Here, even if we have a look at that, calculating the lead score, you can see it's come up with like a very detailed prompt about how lead scores should be calculated, knowing for the AI and automation training industry that it thinks tech, software, and SaaS companies are our ideal target customer. It thinks our best companies are 100 to 500 employees. and this level of revenue. Of course, you can go and tweak this now, but what I would say it's a very, very good starting point. So with that, I know it was quite a lot that we covered. Thank you all for sticking with me through this through the setup. But now it is time for any questions that you have. So feel free also to like raise your hand and then unmute yourself if you want to ask a question directly. Otherwise, I can just go back through and look through the chat. Or Kat, maybe if you have a couple of top questions from the list.
Yeah, I'm just reading one question that sounds quite interesting. Could this thing handle a multi-tool voice note, like create an idea for a blog post in Airtable and a task to write a Notion?
Let's try it. Let's try it. All right, I'm sharing my screen again. All right, share, and I'll move Zoom back over. Let me share here. All right, so let me go back to my workflow, my AI agent. And all right, so what do we want to do? We're going to here, go to Slack first. First, I will always do the voice note. Here we are on Slack. All right. Please create a LinkedIn post idea in the content machine. And it's going to be around n8n AI agents and how you can build them so much faster when you use Claude MCP. Can you also create me a task in Notion for tomorrow at midday to post the post on LinkedIn? All right, so it's a bit of a longer prompt. Before I send this one off, I need to execute my workflow. If you turn this one on, you don't need to go and do that every time. So let me execute the workflow here. It's listening. I'm going to go and send this one off. And it's transcribing the audio. And here we can see. And so now what is it doing? It's calling both tools. You can see just how quick it was. It called Airtable and it called Notion. And let's see what reply we get on Slack. Perfect. I've completed the task. 1, there's a content idea, and 2, the task created on Notion. And here we even have a link directly in Notion. So I guess the data that the AI agent is getting back from Notion is has all the information it needs to actually provide the link. So let me click on this one and see how it did. And here we can see that task has been created in my Notion. And if we check in Airtable, we also have the new post there. So that is like the one massive benefit of agents is the fact is like whenever, like anytime this runs, we don't know how many tools it should call. If you tried to do this in a workflow like step by step, you'd have to build a bunch of logic saying, if it mentions a task, go down this route. If it mentions a content idea, go down this route. The big benefit of agents is the fact that it can handle multiple tools based on the context. And thank you so much for the question, because I realize that's probably one of the more impressive demos, and we wouldn't have got there without the question. So thanks a lot.
There's also a few people asking about prompting, like how to create the perfect prompt for n8n, like create the structure, etc. And someone saying, I realize it's quite important to know how to prompt. Maybe you can mention a few things on that again.
Yeah, absolutely. So prompting is like the big thing is come to next week's workshop on prompt engineering 100%, like obviously a bit of a shameless plug. What I would say, that long prompt that I created for the, so you can see like on the quick prompt, it's very good for this like research saying like, okay, how could the workflow look like? I want an agent that gets read it and sends me a summary on Slack. I want to be quick. I just want to see what it would look like. If you already know in depth what you want it to look like, you want to break this down step by step. What I would always recommend first is before going and sending the prompt directly to Claude to create the workflow, use Claude, use ChatGPT, use whatever, and say, hey, I want to create a prompt that will create an AI agent. This is the AI agent that needs to be created. And you're basically asking AI to write the prompt for you. And do this back and forth iteration. Basically, tell it that you want to write a prompt and that is its goal. It will already get you to a very, very good starting point. And typically what I would always recommend is when you find good prompts that work, also give that. So you could take the prompt that I shared, which is what I actually did. I found that from someone else, and say, hey, take this prompt. This is a very good prompt for creating AI agents. Now I want to create this AI agent. Feel free, like, please create me a new prompt following the same structure. Dave's asking, can you set up n8n MCP in GBT? This one, not yet. Like you potentially could doing the part of pulling in context. So the way that the ChatGPT new connectors feature works is it's very limited, and they've basically done it in a way that you can only use it to pull in information to the AI. You can't do it to take any actions yet. Hopefully they open this up a little bit more. It would be possible. It would be quite a quick, quite a deep, like let's say in-depth setup. What I would recommend is open up the GitHub repository. Let me actually share my screen again here. And I'll just go to the GitHub. Here you can see the different tools that it suggests. So setting this up for Claude desktop, but then you also can use Claude Code, Visual Studio Code, Cursor, or Windsurf. So some of these like vibe coding tools you can also use to set this up. All right. Any other questions, Kat, that you've seen in the chat?
I'm still looking.
Benjamin, I'm seeing yours being created there. Okay, very, very cool. So it already created the tools at least. The one thing, okay, this is a good point. Okay, so the AI agent, you can see there, it's in a question mark. This is something that I should have mentioned at the start. What's basically happening here? So for everyone, I'm just showing here the picture that was sent. So if you ever get this where you see some question mark nodes, what's basically happening is n8n, it's constantly always being updated. So if I go into my n8n account and just go here to the admin panel, I'm going to leave this. We can see here I'm currently running on version 1.106. If I click on these little settings, what you can see is right now I'm on the latest stable version. What I believe is happening there is you are not on the latest version, and this n8n MCP, it always creates the node for the latest version. So if I just open up well, maybe I can go to the Notion here. Let me show you an example. So for every single app that you're trying to use, and let me go here. Yeah, for instance here. So there's the Notion tool using task. This is version 2.2. Whenever n8n updates and creates like maybe the Notion API changes, so this version needs to update, it'll update to 2.3, to 2.4, to 2.5. It could be that you're in an older version. You just need to go and update your n8n instance, and then when you copy paste it, it will work. What you could also do is just like go into the code and put this down one number, and then it should also work. But it really depends on how long it's been since you've updated your instance. Hopefully that answers the question. Theoretically, is it possible to set up an n8n workflow agent which uses the MCP to do it completely in n8n with Claude Opus? Yes, theoretically, it would be possible, because you can also basically agents can also connect to MCP tools. So yeah, that should be possible. A bit of setup, but it could be a fun project. Yeah, okay, so it says you're running version 1.77. Yeah, so it looks like you'll need to update. Yeah, exactly. So Stefan's asking, the n8n MCP is a community, basically an open source. Will this development be reused by n8n to create an official version? That I have no idea. I don't work for n8n. What I could imagine, and it would be a no-brainer, is that this in the future will be a feature within inside n8n. A lot of the other tools do this. For instance, a tool that I'm using quite a lot, just because at 9x we're not affiliated to any of the tools. We use lots of different AI agent building platforms. So for instance, if I open up Lindy and also like Relevance AI have quite good versions. So this is an AI agent builder, and actually starts with you asking prompt what agent you want to build. And it's exactly the same. You basically prompt inside the tool, and then it will go and start building. I believe in the future, n8n will probably have like a little AI assistant up here where you just click that and say, this is the workflow that I'm trying to create. Right now, what's amazing is that Romuald and the community have just taken this upon themselves to start building this so that we don't need to wait. But that would be my prediction, that eventually this would live with inside n8n, but I don't work for them, so I have no idea. And FZ Khan actually just showed for the question before around creating an n8n workflow that creates n8n workflows. Very cool. And Christine was asking if we want this to happen every time we send a voice note, we just toggle it to active. Yep, absolutely. Some LinkedIn profiles being shared. Very nice. John, do you ever use relay.app? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, big fan of relay.app as well. Also, the founder, Jacob, is amazing at the content he puts out there on LinkedIn. Also, I would put it in, it's a much more of a simpler tool to get started with than n8n. The AI agent feature inside Relay is not as advanced, or like maybe it is, then maybe the AI agents inside Relay are a little bit complicated, but they have some amazing workflow actions. So for instance, they have some great actions around like LinkedIn and YouTube that you can like pull in the top 50 posts from a certain person on LinkedIn. That's just an automatic action that you have in Relay. Yeah, big fans of them. Awesome. Any other questions? Any topics? Yeah, thanks, FZ. Glad you liked it. Can n8n dynamically handle individual user credentials, allowing each user to authenticate their own Google Calendar access, or do I need to manually configure credentials for each user? As far as I know, so as I said earlier, like I'm much more familiar on like building workflows with Make than I am with n8n. I don't believe this is a feature yet. So per workflow, you can just set up one connection. And what you could then do is basically have like different branches depending on the user. So you could have like different tools down here. Imagine if you needed to create a LinkedIn post from Jan's account or create one from Alex's account, you could either instruct the agent to do that and then set up different credentials in here. This is something that you will need to map out. All right. Yeah, thanks as well, Farouk. Thanks, Stefan. Glad you liked it. Christine, you need to get up to speed to Airtable. What I would recommend is checking out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you've subscribed. Alex, my co-founder, did an amazing video on learning Airtable in 25 minutes. It goes, yeah, quite in depth, and I think you should get up to speed very quickly. All right, everyone, thank you so much. I know that was maybe a lot, but I really appreciate how many of you stuck with it all the way to the end. And yeah, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if you have any questions as well. And otherwise, we'll see you next week in the next one. All right. Bye, everyone. Ciao.